Hello, this is Eric Bobrow, and this Archicad video tutorial is a very special one because it's a remake of the most widely viewed Archicad tutorial on the internet, my QuickStart course Lesson 1 Archicad Basic Training, which has reached an astonishing 676,000 views, 1,400 likes since I made it back in 2011. Now, when I first created it, I had no idea how many Archicad users would get up and running with QuickStart. I set out to create a simple, clean set of lessons to take someone from ground zero, beginner, all the way through some level of self-sufficiency, laying out a basic project cleanly and accurately to create a set of working drawings, conceptual drawings. Now, it's also proved very useful for experienced users who want to go back through the basics and make sure that they're using the best practices methods. The QuickStart course, I share the first few lessons here on YouTube as my contribution to the community, helping people to get started, and also so that you can sample them and see if it works for you. The QuickStart course is one part of my much larger, very comprehensive best practices course. You can buy it separately or as part of the larger course. It has dozens and dozens of video lessons on intermediate and advanced topics on almost everything you need to know about Archicad. Now, the Best Practices course also includes the Archicad Coaching program, which you can get separately as well, where I help Archicad users with questions that come up in practice on real projects. So for more information on all of these things and everything I do with Archicad, check out the links and the information on the page down below this video. But here I'm going to be sharing with you here on YouTube my Archicad QuickStart course, Lesson 1, 2018. Let's get started. So we'll get started with a tour of the Archicad working environment. I'm going to show you a small project here that is supplied with master template. It's always easier to understand Archicad or any program, I think, in context. We're looking at the ground floor plan here, and we also have a 3D model of the building. So everything that we're doing in Archicad is done in working drawings as well as in 3D, and there's also data, meaning you're tabulating door and window schedules or quantities and things all at the same time. Now on the left side of the screen we have our tools, the selection tools, design tools, which are 3D, documentation tools, which are primarily 2D annotation, and then some miscellaneous extra ones under more. Now, the way that this environment works is that you can reconfigure it to suit your needs. For example, if I position my mouse over here and press down and drag, you can see how this now shows the tool with the name. And then I can scroll down here to see more of the tools, or click, for example, to open or close these sections here. Now, if I move this around, you'll see it will reconfigure at certain points. I'm going to get it back to the way I had it before, where we've got all of the tools visible. When I hover over a tool, you'll see a little prompt that allows you to quickly understand what the tool is about. Now, at the top of the screen, we have a shortcut bar. So these shortcuts are basically quick ways to get access to certain commands, like intersect. For example, if you had two walls that weren't joining properly, you could select them and then click intersect and they would join. Or we can undo using this command here, or pan around on screen to a new position using this one. Now below this we have a strip that's the info box. Now some people will put this in a different place, but this is the default that Graphisoft ships it with. When I activate a tool, we can see information about the wall tool, what layer it's on, and various other attributes. When I click on other tools, you can see, for example, this window tool, it's going to have different information. Now, on the right side of the screen, we have the Navigator. The Navigator allows us to move through different parts of the project. For example, we're on the first floor or ground floor. I can double click and go up to the second floor, and you can see how on screen the information has changed. So we can navigate between stories. We can also go to sections or elevations that are generated from the model, interior elevations which would be generated from different rooms inside the model, worksheets which are 2D work areas that could have imported drawings or other types of notes or text, details which typically will come from your model but can be imported from manufacturers, 3D documents, which allow you to actually create a 3D view and annotate it, put in text and dimensioning and things like that. Now in 3D, we can be looking in the axo view that we had here, or perspective. Now you notice how when I jumped over here, it actually is showing only part of the building. It's leaving off the roofs, and it's leaving off the site, etc. there. Now that's because of the layers and the layer settings. So down at the bottom of the screen here, we have some other controls, one of which has to do with the layer combination. So this pop-up allows me to switch, say, between the floor plan and, let's say, a view that might be appropriate for sections where we're showing the roofs and, of course, some of the site. So the layer combination here can be opened up using the little or little icon there. This is a quick way to get access to it, or you can use the keyboard shortcut, which is Command L or Control L. Now this looks very complicated at first glance, but the basic idea here is that if we click on a layer combination, it'll turn on or off different groups of elements. So for example, the exterior walls have the visible eyeball, and in this case in furniture, we're going to see that the furniture layer is turned on, whereas when we're doing a construction document, let's say where would it be, floor plan here, then we would typically have the furniture turned off. So we'll be learning about all of these icons and all of these controls over the subsequent lessons of the QuickStart training series. But this is just a quick introduction to the idea of layer combinations. And so when we have a layer combination for the floor plan, we're not seeing the roofs, for example, but if we have the layer combination either for sections or possibly for the building and site, that'll turn on layers, and now you see actually some more of the site information. Now we've been looking here in the project map. This is the Navigator, and we can switch at any time. Let's just go back to the floor plan. Now we can switch at any time to the view map. So the view map here is a hierarchical group of items. So in other words, you can open or close these items, and each one of these has certain settings associated with it. So for example, when I go to the first floor or the second floor, it's changing the layer combination. If I go down to the basement plan, you can see that the layer combination is set for condoc floor plan, but when I go to the roof plan here, where we're not seeing the walls, it's now set to a different one. So basically each one of these items in the view map have some settings. For example, what layer combination are they going to activate? So we'll be learning more about this in future lessons, but I just wanted to give you an introduction. If you were to be on the first floor plan here and you wanted to switch to show, let's say, a ceiling plan, we can switch in the view map to a different version of the first floor. Double click on this and you can see it's the same footprint of the building, but rather different look because it's showing the items that you would show on a ceiling plan. It's also changing the way that the doors and windows look. We're no longer seeing the door swings or the details of the windows, and that's because of a combination of model view options. For example, in the reflected ceiling plan, this will turn off some of the elements like the annotation. If we switch this to the one for standard plan sections and elevations here, you can see now we've got the doors and windows showing normally and markers, whereas when I switch this to the one for the reflected ceiling plan, it's turning that off. So the view actually contains information about what to show. And how to show it as well. So for example, if I go to the furniture plan and we go here to the first floor furniture plan, we're going to see a rather different view of the same building. So all of this is the same model, the same project file. It's just different ways of looking at it, and that's what the view map is particularly good for. When we go, for example, to sections, like this section here, we'll see that it is bringing up a view here. Let's just fit it in window. This view here is of course, cutting a section through the building, and it has different controls. Right now it's got the layer combination for the sections. So when we want to navigate back and forth, we can go and click on a tab at the top, and that will restore us to the last view that we had for that particular viewpoint or area of the project. Now let's look a little bit at how you navigate within a view. If I want to zoom in on a view, I can do it in either of two ways. I can use the little magnifying glass, increase zoom, and then click, for example, at one corner and then just go to another corner, and that's going to indicate that I'd like to zoom in on this area. I can also simply roll my mouse wheel one way or another. So I'm rolling it one way to zoom out or another way to zoom in. Now when I do this, I can also hover over something and then it'll zoom in on that particular area. My mouse will stay constant on top of, let's say, this bathtub while Archicad zooms in or zooms out there. Now if you want to slide over a little bit, you can press down the center mouse button, the mouse wheel, and drag. So press, drag, and release will move it. If you're on a laptop, you may need to actually use the pan tool, where you click on that, press down, move to the new position, click again. So basically the pan tool can be used on a laptop or of course on a desktop computer, but it requires some extra clicks compared to just press and drag, which is what's happening with the pan. Now I can also go back to the previous view here, previous zoom, so you can see how that works. If I click again, it'll just keep on going back through these different positions that I was in. I can use also going forward, so sometimes you might want to go back and forth between different positions. And we can use the fit in window, which would be the equivalent of zoom to extents in some other CAD programs. Now this is showing us, of course, all of what the current plan is on screen and some extra elements. These are hotspots that are snap points to aid in alignment when placing the elements or this view onto a layout sheet. So they're actually non-printing, but in this case, if I want to go back to the sort of centralized zoomed in view, I can use that, or I could just roll the mouse wheel. Now this is the layout book, and this particular view here or a similar one will be on the floor plan. If I double click on the floor plan layout sheet, you can see that this is a piece of paper of a defined size with, in this case, several different drawings. Now if I have the arrow tool active and I hover over this and click, you can see this is one drawing, this is another one. Each one of these drawings has a name, a scale, and some various settings that control this, and we can drag them around, of course. Now in the background we have the title block. The title block is associated with what's called the master. So the master for each sheet is found down at the bottom of this layout group or the layout book, and in this case I know it's the AMT standard 24 by 36, so 24 inch by 36 inch. Double click on this and you can see that if I zoom out to show everything, that the title block looks a little different. It looks in full color. If I click on this, I can edit it. I can change the way that this is drawn. Now if I were to drag this off to the side just for demonstration purposes, and then I go back to the sheet, you'll see how that item has moved. So anything that you change on the title block or on the masters will change on the sheet. So let me go back to this, and we'll just undo this little command here. Command Z or Control Z or Z will do that, of course. So we do have multiple masters, so we can have ones with different sizes sheets, or in some cases, if we go to one here, we may have them subdivided in different ways to line up your drawings all together. So each one of these sheets up here are going to refer to a specific master here. And of course, when we go to something like the title sheet, we can combine lots of different text and images. All of those things are very straightforward to set up within Archicad. Now let's go back to the floor plan, and in fact we're going to go to the normal working drawing, say first floor plan, where we do see some more of the annotation dimensions and things like that. And let's talk a little bit about how you can select things. This is just the very beginning of your orientation. When I'm in the arrow tool like this, I can hover over any element and you'll see that it will highlight and it will give me a pre-selection information notice. So this is a slab. It has certain information about what it's made of and what layer. And if I click, it'll select it. Once I have it selected, I can see various settings which I could change. For example, it is made of concrete masonry unit, but I could change it to structural concrete, or I could change it to brick or something else here. Now if I go and select the next one here by clicking on it, you can see that this is a stair. So it is an object that can be controlled with how many steps and all sorts of controls here. Now when I go over the edge of something like this, you can see how the cursor changes to 3 lines. That's a Mercedes symbol, based on, just called that because it's similar to the car logo. When I click on that, I can select it, of course, but that indicated that I was on the edge of it. Whereas if I go to a corner point or a node point, it's going to have a check mark. Now you see these little circles and things that show up in lines. Those are snap indicators that allow me, if I wanted to draw something, I can do it in line with this snap point. Now the snap point will come up if you hover over things, and sometimes it's very, very useful, and other times it gets in the way. You can always hit the escape key to have that disappear from your screen. The escape key is the one in the upper left of your keyboard. You can also hit escape again to deselect elements. In other words, to just start fresh, not having anything selected. You can deselect by clicking in empty space, just not on any other element. That'll also do it. Now, when I go, for example, to the wall tool and hover over this, or the wall, and I click on it, you can see that we've got information on the wall. It's on a layer called wall exterior. This allows us to, for example, show the exterior walls, but perhaps hide the layer with the interior walls. We separate them out. We can see that there's some information about what it's made of here. And there's more information you can see just poking out on the right side. This information box or info box can extend quite far. In order to see more information, we can press down on this little divider and pull this down. Now we have a scroll, and I can scroll over like this, and there's lots of information that we can either see or change. However, I can also just hover over this and roll the mouse wheel. And when I roll the mouse wheel, you can see how the mouse stayed in the same point, but the information scrolled. So I don't actually have to pull this down here. I can actually have this not take up that extra space and simply roll the mouse wheel to do that. Now you can also reposition this info box in a different part of your screen, but for now we'll leave that alone. Now this wall here is got a height 0 to 9 feet, so it's going up to about 3 meters in height. If I go and click on this little icon here of a wall, it'll bring up the wall selection settings. That indicates that this wall is selected and editable, and I could change it. Let's just say that I wanted to make it 10 feet, make it a little bit taller. Now, of course, that might be an issue in terms of this particular design, but I want to point out that I can make the change in here, and then you can see this information changes there. Likewise, I can change it here, and that's going to affect it back there. It will also affect it in the 3D view, and if you had a schedule for walls, it would show up there. Same way, if I go and hover over the door with the arrow tool and click on it, we can see these little dots or selection handles show that we've got that selected. It says that it's a D121, so it's a single door as opposed to a double door, and it's in Archicad 21 currently. When I click on this, we can see that it's got a certain style in terms of its elevation. Here's what it looks like on plan. Here's what it looks like in elevation. Here's an angled view of it. And we may have some other information that'll show up here if we click on these. But usually we stay with the plan or one of these other two here. Now if I were to click on this to switch it, for example, to a double door, you'll see the preview will change here. And if I say OK, we'll see how it changed on the plan. So whatever we change in the dialog box will affect that. Now I'm going to go and undo this here. And let's take a look at how this door is seen in an elevation. So right now we are on the sort of right side of the building. That would be nominally the east elevation. So let me scroll down here and open up the east elevation. And that's going to refresh in just a moment. So this is the same door. We can actually drag it. I'm just going to go and I'll just right click on it and say I'd like to move, drag. So this is one way that you can do that. Click on a point and then slide it over. So I've just now slid it over just by eye a certain amount. If I now go back to the plan, we're going to see that it's moved. So these are all, of course, coordinated. I'll just undo back to that position. When I undo, it'll actually jump it back to the view where the action happened, so we can see the results there. Now, one thing that sometimes can be confusing is, of course, it's moved back, but we've lost those layers. If I double click on this, on the tab, then it's going to restore the settings for that particular view. So not only are these tabs up at the top a fast way to go back and forth, they also hold the information from the views, which define, for example, how the what layers are turned on, etc. So all of these things are linked together, and you can easily navigate from one part of the project for a floor plan to an elevation or 3D view at any time. Now, before we finish up, I'm just going to show you a couple of quick things about drawing. If I go to a design tool like the wall tool here, it allows me to select, of course, what size. Right now it's set for that 9-foot height, and what it's made of. Now, there's so much to learn here, but the briefest thing is that we can choose whether we're going to draw a single wall, a series of walls, a box, or a rotated box, or possibly different ways of doing curved walls or other shapes of walls. This is the geometry method. We can also, when we're drawing the wall, we're drawing a line in space, and we're saying, where is that line in space? So it's basically, is it on the outside or the center, or is it on the core, which would be the structural framing on one side or another. In addition, we have a choice, in this case for walls, of simple walls, which are made of a single element, like let's say granite or concrete. We have marble, stucco. Let's say where is structural concrete here? Concrete, of course, concrete structural. So we can make walls out of a single type of element. We can also switch to a composite. So a composite, this symbol here, allows us to pick walls that have many skins. So for example, a 2x4 wood framed wall with a cultured stone base, or 2x4 with stucco, plywood. These names are arbitrary in the sense that you can create them with whatever text you want to describe them. Obviously, we want to have them pretty easy to understand. They can be named like this, or they could be just wall type 1, wall type 2, wall type 3, that sort of thing, as long as you know and your team knows what those wall types are. So each one of these has different skins. Now finally, we have an option here for a complex profile, which, as you'll see, can be different types of shapes, not necessarily what you would call a wall, like it could be a molding here, things like that, but it's done with the wall tool. So these you can choose, and you can go back and forth and pick whichever one you need. Now, if you want to quickly select something that's frequently used, you can use the little pop-up here for the favorites. So the favorites are things that you can set up at any time, and we say, I want to use this. So you double click on it, and now it's set up to that particular wall type. Now, we also, if I press down on the wall here, we can see that it will pop up next to this as well. So the favorites are available here or here. Now, to draw a wall, for example, if I go here and switch to the polywall method, I click on one point, move this around, you can see the little preview. I can snap it to the axis. You can see the y-axis is indicated, and I can have a distance, and I might type in that I want this to be 8 feet or 2.5 meters, whatever you want, and then hit enter or return on the keyboard. That completes that action. Now I can draw the next one. And so, for example, I'll just make it 3 feet since we're running out of space over here, and hit enter. Now when I'm done, I can either right-click and say OK, or I can just click again on the same point that I was on, saying I don't want to go to a new location. Now those two walls have been drawn, and you can see how they're cleaning up automatically to each other. And I'm just rolling the mouse wheel to zoom in or out. That's the simplest way to examine something, to do that. So we're going to be spending more time in the upcoming lessons going over how you can draw your building and make sure it all fits together. We'll be going over how to enter distances and offsets and make sure that the sizing and relationship of the elements is correct. Eventually, we'll be, in the later parts of the QuickStart course series, we'll be building a real project together following a set of PDFs that I've created that you can print out or just view on screen. That way you'll actually be building your own project with me and getting self-sufficient. By the end of the QuickStart course series, you'll be able to draw your own building cleanly and accurately and lay it out on sheets and print it out. So it's an exciting journey we're on. The QuickStart course series will take you through the basics of Archicad. After that, if you want to go deeper, you can join or sign up right at the beginning for my Best Practices course. The Best Practices course will take you through all of the intermediate and advanced topics that most Archicad users will find extremely useful, teaching you the best practices methods for using the software. So if you are watching this on the YouTube channel where I share many of my Archicad tutorials, I want to thank you for showing an interest in this and starting the process of learning. Please check out the courses that I'm referring to on acbestpractices.com, or for QuickStart, just by itself, acbestpractices.com/QuickStart. I look forward to working with you and helping you get up and running with Archicad, using it in the most efficient, optimum way possible. This has been Bobrow. Thanks for watching.